Hello, my darlings. Veronica again from Ahr's Flower Shop. Today we've got my ribbon holder. It's made out of a 2x4 and 1-inch plywood that I used a drill to cut holes in, and then I used my jigsaw to cut down to the drill holes and just put a wooden dowel across it, and I use it all the time. And now we are going to wire up a mum. I use floral wire because I am a florist. We don't keep chenille stems in the house very often, and this is always readily available, so we just use those, and they're easy to hide and easy to do and makes it easy for us. But today we're mostly going to be making shields, or a lot of people call them mum heads. So I'm going to show you the different loops that I use to make my mum heads. This one we call the flat loop, or just a flat. And if you got some ribbon from me, you got this black iridescent ribbon. That's one of the things I like using it for, is striping down those flats or striping on these loops. This type of fold right here, I call just the loop. And we just put right side on top of right side, and we don't put it together flat and cleanly like a point. We do make points, but this one is a loop. So now, if you got the laced edge from me, we're layering this one on top of a burgundy ribbon with diamond dust on top of it. And I love that laced edge. It just adds so much to our loops. So now I've got a diamond dust with just a maroon stripe, and I'm gonna add a clear and silver star mylar ribbon, and I'm going to line those up, and we are going to make a point with those. I love making points with the diamond dust because it does come out very clean and nice. Here we have our diamond dust again, and I'm going to put another burgundy on there. And I use these little tins, you know, the loaf tins, and they fit great in my cart that goes around, but we're going to make a flat with the heart mylar, the heart stamped mylar. And those are really cute. And then we have a black stamp mylar with footballs that I'm just going to make a loop with instead of a flat. And I've got my ribbon cutter here, and it makes it really easy. So the reason I'm showing you all this is because I do this in the off season. I will sit at home when my husband's watching TV, and I will just make loops. And I will make crazy loops and flat loops and regular loops and pointed loops, so that I have all of these ready to go, because I don't know what each mum is going to end up being and what people are going to order, but I know that I need loops. So whether I'm going to make a loop braid, or I'm going to make shields or mum heads, I'm going to need these. Here's another ribbon you might have gotten from me. It's the silver striped ribbon, and it layers beautifully on top of a number 9. I love this loop. I use that one a lot. And this one, I don't know where I got this ribbon from. I've had it for a really long time. It's kind of meshy, and it comes apart, but it works well for loops. This one, if you got my mesh in any size and any color, this one I'm using white on top of white, and it makes it look so sparkly. It's really super sparkly, that mesh. It's fantastic, and that's how I use it. I love layering it. And then if you just have a traditional silver and you want to layer it, and I'm just going to make a loop I'm going to make a crazy loop out of this one. The way you make a crazy loop is you line up your top ribbon, the bottom of it, to your right side of your bottom ribbon, and it's going to be wrong side to wrong side. And that's how you make your crazy loop. And now if you got this ribbon from me, it has stripes on either side. It's kind of iridescent. I'm going to layer it with just a glitter silver in the center and make a crazy loop out of it. And I love that ribbon, and it's so cheap because I only sell them for $1, and it's 27 yards. And if you got the wider mesh, it's like 2 3/4 inches from me. I have it in blue, red, green, gold, and white with gold edges. It looks fantastic on top of the number 40s. Even when it overhangs a little bit, it just really adds that something extra and that beautiful sparkle. And so I layered it, and here it is. If you put that blue over navy, it still can be used over navy. Even if you put it over the silver or over the white with a navy background, it's still going to look good on your navy or royal mums. Now I'm going to show you how I store my loops. So my loops, I use these alligator clips. They have to have the ridges. And so I make everything in packs of 6 because I will show you my 6 rule in just a moment. So all of my packs here are clipped together and I just store them in a tote. Just like that, my crazy loops, I put all the points together and I clip them together with an alligator clip. And so I have all of these loops in a tote that I just bring out for, you know, I just keep adding to throughout the year when I have a moment. And this is how I put my crazy loops together with the alligator clip. And I do them all in packs of 6. And my rule of 6 usually works really easy when you're using your backings because they have 6 lines on them. Now some of them have 8. And if they have 8, then I draw out my 6. So this one has 6. And you can see there it has the 6. And so I'm going to start out with a flat loop. I usually always start out with a flat loop. I very rarely change. And we're going to line the middle of that flat loop all the way down the center of that line on the backer. I always start out with 4 of those going around my circle, so I still have somewhere to staple from to add my layering on top of. So now I'm going to add a point, and points can go both ways. They can face up or down depending on the look that you're wanting. This time I faced it up with the opening up, and so I'm going to put 3 of those in between those, and I'm still going to add more. I don't like just 2 layers. I like to add more, and this one I decided to add one of my just loops, and this one is a mesh loop. That's silver. It's really pretty, and it goes with that iridescent black if you got that from me, or the laced edge white. It looks really pretty. And so once I have 2 of those in there, then I will go in and add another flat loop, and then add another point, and then go in with my loops again until everything is layered in 6. So everything has 6, 6, 6, which is why which sounds horrible, and I am a Catholic, but it works the best for me, and it's the way I've been doing it for over 30 years. So everything comes out really even for me, and I don't change it because it's the way I do it. So now I'm just finishing up, putting the last finishing touches on my little loops on the inside. One more to go. And this is going to create like a dome around your mum. So it looks like a very tight spot, but if you squish your flower together, pull it through the back when you're putting your glue in, you're going to see that your mum is beautifully encased with your shield. So now I'm going to make another one. We're doing the same size, the 4-inch backer, and I'm lining up again all of those on the line that the backer already has with my 6, and I start with 4. This time I'm going to do something just a little bit different. I'm going to use another flat, but I'm going to offset it. I'm not going to put it straight into the hole. I'm going to put it a little bit to the left of the hole in between the other flats. And the reason that I'm doing this is because I decided that I'm going to do a crazy loop in between those, which just gives you more 3-dimension, you know, and it just looks really pretty when you get towards the end of this. You'll see when we put that mum in there, it just creates a beautiful encasement for your mum head. And look at that sparkle, isn't it great? And we have so many different kinds that we can use here, and we've made so many loops, and it will match. If you make a bunch of different loops with a bunch of different styles, it will match any mum that you are making. So this is a little bit of prep that I do because these loops and cutting them and everything else take a long time. And we know this. And so, you know, especially if we're doing loop braids, making these loops ahead of time, even though if you don't know yet what colors you're going to need together, and don't forget to make your silvers and whites for seniors, it does add a lot to it. So there is our shield, and you can see from the side how thick that is, which makes it look really pretty when you put your mum inside of it. It comes up the sides and just looks really gorgeous. So now I have a 6-inch backer here, and this one has 8 lines in it. So I'm going to go ahead and draw my 6 lines in here, which really helps me because then I know where my centers are going. Also, it helps me with placement of how far away my loops are going, because all of my loops are cut at 6 inches, every single one, and so depending on how far I put it out, the backer is how big a flower I have. So this flower is a 7.5, so I don't have to go very far away from the edge. Like, I can go pretty close in from the edge if we lined up that mum on top of it, which I always put my mum on top of it so I know how far out I'm going to do. So this one I decided to take my point and put it face down, which means the opening is down. And what that does when you put it on top of a flat is make it come up higher towards the eye, which makes it come up higher towards the top of the mum, which creates a bigger dome. And I'm going to layer that with a loop in front of it. And so I have my flat and my point and my loop, and now I decide that I'm going to put another flat in front of my flat. So since I have all these here, I can just layer to my little heart's content until I'm happy, especially with a big mum like a 7.5. So, and if you see there, I have used my silver mesh on top of those, and it just adds so much sparkle. And that's one of the things that you can do with a chiffon or a see-through ribbon, is use them in your shields or your mum backings. And look how gorgeous that is and how much it comes up around the mum. Isn't it beautiful? Now we're going to do also a 6-inch backer, but we're making it for a 9.5-inch mum, which means that all of our loops have to go towards the edge, which makes sometimes it really hard to staple. And you can see here that I cut the backer in half. Now, if you have your lines drawn on there for your 6, you know exactly where your loops need to be. So I create a design on one side, and now I'm copying it onto the other side. And so and make sure that if you're using Mylars, all of those hearts or all those footballs or anything else is all facing the same direction. You have to do that. So I forget sometimes and I have to flip them around, and it's very annoying, but always double check it before you glue anything together. And so I'm putting all my outside loops on first, and then I'm going to go back in with my points, and I did face those down. My outer loops I faced up. And so they fit inside of each other just perfectly. And what that does is create it towards the eye, which makes it come up the side of the mum, especially when you're using something like a 9.5-inch mum. It's a big flower, and you want something to come up those sides, and if not, it just looks like it's flat and it's floating on top of your shield. So now I'm lining them up, and I'm just going to take another backer, and I'm going to line it up on the back. And I left myself room all around the outside of this backer, and I just staple it around there. I line up my center holes, and we're just going to staple all the way around. And all those staples are going to get covered up too, so it doesn't matter. And then we're going to line up the bottom and do the same, and just staple all of those up. So if you're having problems trying to hold it and wrinkling your acetate or your luster to get your stapler in it, this is the way that I do it. So now we're going to take our 9.5-inch mum that we already wired and put it down in through the center. And now you can see when you look from the side how it comes up just absolutely beautifully. So it's not just a floating flower on top of a flat shield. So I hope this helps you guys. These are tips and tricks from Ahr's Flower Shop. And I really love making this tutorial. And remember, creativity is meant to be shared.